Hello, hello, hello. This is lesson 6. We are going to finish up this beat sheet. And I hope that you are learning a lot about structure. I hope that you're watching things that you are able to apply all of this to, because I promise you, nearly every single thing that you watch follows this structure. It just does. It follows it. And I think it is important for us to understand the structure so that we can apply it to our own writing. Okay, so where did we end here from the last lesson? I believe it was the bad guys close in. So for our 50-page script, this takes up 27 through 37. You have to have about 10 minutes, 8 minutes maybe, of where it looks like the bad guys are going to win. And after this, there is an all is lost moment. In the book, he actually calls it the width of death moment. And where it is where it appears that everything is completely lost for our protagonist. So again, if you've seen Star Wars and he mentioned Star Wars, it's when Obi-Wan Kenobi is killed. The mentor figure is killed. And that is done in so many different stories over and over and over again, where the mentor figure is taken away from the protagonist. 9 times out of 10, they're killed. But he also mentions Elf, which I think is an interesting movie to use for this as all is lost, because he does reach an all is lost moment. If you've seen Elf, everything has gone sour with his father and his family and Christmas and all of these things. And he walks to the bridge. And if you watch Elf, go back and look at that moment. He looks over the edge down into the water. So we have this moment where he's actually contemplating ending his elfish life. All is lost. You have to bring them down as low as you possibly can. And you must do this because it makes it even sweeter for the audience when they come out of that. Go back and look at Cinderella and the shape of that story, where things are looking great, and then the quote unquote bad guys close in because she loses her slipper. Her sisters and her mother torment her even more, especially after they figure out that she is the girl that the prince danced with. They lock her away so that she won't ever experience happiness in her life. All is lost. So we're down in this middle of misery moment. And it's after this all is lost, we have this short little segment he calls Dark Night of the Soul. And it's usually not very long. In our script, it's probably going to be 3 minutes, maybe 4, okay? Of where, this protagonist feels like all is hopeless. Why am I even here? I'm the most worthless thing in the world. Why have I been brought to this place? Why have I been forsaken? Why is everybody turning their back on me? All of these things where all is lost, and it's just, now my soul is an absolute darkness. And this is when we break into 3. We break into the 3rd act. Now, for a feature length, this is at page 85. For us, we're going to put it at 42. All right. So we don't have much story left, okay, as far as time and as page count. And it's very important for you to follow the page count as close as you possibly can with this, because everything is about structure. So there's something there that shifts it back into the favor of the protagonist. Very often, it's tied back to the B story. So again, I keep using Star Wars, but we can use several different examples. So Luke is now without his mentor. He's with the rebellion. Nobody knows him, really, right? He just met the princess. He's joined this group, and he's going to go fly off with them on basically a suicide mission to destroy this battle station that can destroy planets. And the allies that he met along the way, the droids, are still with him, but they're limited on their contribution. But also his buddies, Han Solo and Chewbacca, have decided, this is not for me, kid. I've got to go pay off some debts. You guys have your rebellion. Have fun with that. I'm out of here. And he leaves. So you got this kid who's lost so much within a week's period of time, probably less than that. And now his buddies leave as well. Well, that's really significant because he's now alone. So this is the dark night of the soul, okay? So we go off in this suicide mission, and it's apparent from the action sequence that these little ships should not be taking on this battle station. This is ridiculous. This is beyond comprehension. Why is this even occurring? And just as things look bleak, just as it looks like Luke is going to be killed himself, who shows back up and helps him out, fires upon the ship that's got him in his sights, but his friend Han Solo and Chewbacca. Well, this breaks it. All right, this immediately breaks it. And this is a very quick break into 3, okay? Very quick, where now it looks like the problem is going to be solved, all right? So it's really in this finale moment when we see the tide turn and the B story is brought back in, all right? So take a look at that when you're watching your movies, and you have to watch some movies to fill out the beat sheet. See how it breaks into 3. See how the B story is brought back in, because typically that's what occurs. All right. Now, it's an offering of the solution. The problem can be solved now. Things were going great. Now they've gone terrible. Now there's a way to solve the problem. Now there's a way to deal with this. So this is called the finale moment. And in a feature length, it's from page 85 to 110. Okay. So it's the last 20 minutes or so of the movie. For us, it's going to be the last 6 or 7 minutes. Okay. So again, if you're watching things that are about 42, 45 minutes long, time it out and start seeing if this beat sheet is right. You're going to find that it absolutely is. Okay. So this section, the finale section, we're breaking into 3. The B story is brought back in. Okay. Now, again, it's important for you to really focus on that B story, that subplot that's going to support your story. As I said, it's very often the introduction of a new character at that breaking into Act 2 section. All right. So how can they come along and help put everything back together in the finale section? And like I said, every story is a little bit different, but very often it's the love interest. Very often the love interest comes back in, and there's reconciliation, and they have a solution to the problem. The problem can now be solved. So see where that fits in with your story, because the protagonist is now going to triumph. They have to have a way out. They have to have that solution. They have to have that way of getting out of that so that they can succeed, so that they can win. All right. Now, yes, there are some stories where the protagonist does not win, They're rare and they're hard to do. Just so you know, they're hard to do and they're hard to satisfy an audience. So be careful. I know that many of us are rebellious and are going to say, I'm not going to follow any structure. Well, then your story is doomed because it's all about structure. You are building a building on paper. Okay? Because again, this is for the purpose of hopefully putting into somebody's hands to produce. That's the thinking that we should have as writers with this, that this can actually be produced. All right, so this finale is where you're wrapping everything up. Things are now starting to look good. And it's just a little glimmer, it's just a little spark of being able to solve the problem. Maybe this will work. And it does. And it expands and it explodes and they succeed. Now, as I said, there's always an exception, right? There's always an exception to these things, but they're very, very rare. And I know you're probably going to go out and try to find them and say, see, they didn't do that. I get it. The one that immediately comes to mind, I've mentioned in previous videos, is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders is kind of interesting because the hero doesn't save the day. In fact, a lot of people have said that the story of Raiders would have happened the way that it did anyway without Indiana Jones even being a part of it. If you've seen it, it's a quest. If you haven't seen it, it's a quest for the lost Ark of the Covenant of God. And the Nazis want it because they believe it's a super weapon. And Indiana Jones wants it because he's an archaeologist and he wants to protect it and he wants to keep it away from the Nazis. Well, Jones finds it, it's taken away, and he races and chases it down to an island where the Nazis are going to test it out. They're going to take the lid off. Well, he gets captured, he gets tied up. They open the lid, and the power of God, and I know I'm spoiling it if you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, you really should see it because it really is exceptional storytelling. And the screenplay is in the top 100 Writers Guild of America rated screenplays. So there you go. And then the wrath of God kills all the Nazis. Indiana Jones does not solve the problem. He does not save the day. God does. And he loses the Ark. It's taken away from him by the US government, put into a box and put into a warehouse and hidden away for all time. And nobody cared. No one cared that he lost. No one cared that he wasn't the real winner. Everybody loved that story anyway. Everybody loved it. It's in there are items from the movie in the Smithsonian Institute. The movie is studied all over the world. It is proclaimed as one of the greatest movies ever made. But there's an exception where the protagonist at the end, I mean, it looks bleak and it definitely follows the structure, but at the end, he actually doesn't save the day. God does. So it's a rarity, okay? It's very rare. But a lot of people do not like that kind of ending, that God from the machine kind of ending. The Greeks had a term for that, deus ex machina, deus ex machina. Trying to think how to pronounce it. And it means God from the machine. So they had plays where a God would come in and save the day, solve the problem at the end. We typically don't like that as a solution. We want to see the protagonist save the day somehow. So if somebody else does, or if it is taken away from them, or if God does it, or fate, or whatever, it's very dissatisfying. Raiders is an exception to that. And as I said, there are very, very few exceptions. They're very rare. Don't try it in this class because it's just going to be too hard for you to try to figure it out. Follow the structure as we've got it. Okay. So the problem is solved, however you're going to solve it. As I said, think about your B story and how you can bring it in and support the end. And then we have the opening image. Now we have the final image. The final image of the movie, the final moment, that final thing that we see, the final few moments. And so think about that. For any story that you really like, what is the last moment, the last few moments that you see? And I mean, it's pretty telling. You know, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty telling. Again, back to Star Wars, since we've been using that all along, they come into a big assembly and they're given these great big medals because they saved the galaxy. They're awarded. It's a very breathtaking, emotional moment. In Raiders, he goes off with his girlfriend in disgust, and the Ark of the Covenant is put into a box and put into a warehouse. Credits roll. Take a look at the book. He outlines miscongeniality. He takes it from beginning to end for every single moment. So, of course, you know that the exercise that we're going to have in week 3 is that you're going to need to watch something and fill out the beat sheet. Okay. Now, use the one for the feature length. Use the one that's for the feature length. I have 2 separate ones out there. I have the 50 pager for us to use for our scripts, but then I also have the one for the feature length. So make sure that you use that as you're filling it out. And look at the time. Look at your, put a watch there or a timer and just see where these moments are coming. Listen, movies are built. They are built. In fact, chapter 5 of the book is called Building the Perfect Beast. These things are planned very meticulously. It takes a long time to come up with the idea, the writing, the filming, the editing, and the final production for a film. In fact, it's 2 years is the average from when it starts to when it finishes, to when it's actually going to be released. So just understand, every step of the way is carefully managed and thought out. Same thing for plays. If you're going to write a play, it's the same thing. It takes a long time and every moment is carefully planned. All right, that's the beat sheet. That's what we're going to follow. Hope you're writing. Write. Remember, show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Okay? You want feedback before the 25 pages are due? Send it to me. I have time to sit and read and give you some feedback. All right? So, happy writing, and I'll see you down the road.